All right, we're going to get started here, and thank everybody for joining today. And I'm going to take you through this presentation, and like Kristen said, I guess entertain some questions at the end. Okay, so to get started with, I'm going to give you a little overview of who we are, and E&I, and a little background on me to give you an idea of where we're coming from. Then we'll move into some of the specifics on benefit integration. Okay, to start with, yes, I am the founder of E&I. Started in 1983, 30 years ago. Of course, I tell everybody I was 16 at the time, which is not exactly accurate, but I like that answer better than the real one. We have over 2 million covered lives that we provide our services to, and I'll give you a little overview on those services here in a minute, give you an idea of some of the background and some of our basis for where we're going today. We have over 400 different customers, and I'll give you some of the example of those customers coming up here. We are a regional, national, international provider of benefit services, and again, I'll describe some of those here in a minute. I want to let everybody know we really started off in the field 30 years ago doing EAP services. We've expanded that over the time period to offer many different benefit services, and that really led us down the road of integration and how we got to some of the offerings where we're working on today. Here's an example of some of our benefits that we do offer. We do one what we call Balance Works, which is our fully integrated work-life employee assistance benefit service. We have another service we call Balance Pro, which is really a personal assistant, kind of concierge service. Let's call it like a concierge on steroids. And people can call in with all kinds of work-life requests and different areas they want researched, and a personal assistant will research that information and get it back to them. We also offer a wellness program we call Balanced Health, which is corporate wellness services that we connect with a lot of our customers with. And another example of the type of service that we offer is called Balanced Care, which is health advocacy, or we help them navigate the insurance world and answer a lot of their questions around their complex health benefit offering. Now, these are 4 of our main core services. We have 3 or 4 other benefit kind of ancillary services that we offer as well. And but just to give you an idea of who the company is and what we deliver to our customers. Our guiding philosophy as a company is we say what begins as a dynamic solution continues as a genuine relationship. And for us, what that means is that we really look to customize solutions, which also comes into play with benefit integration, and really get close to the customers to make sure we understand their specific needs and how these services can be better tailored and changed and revised to meet their needs as time goes on and they change their needs of their human capital. Our vision: to become nationally recognized as designers of integrated benefit solutions. That's really a lot of what we've done in the last year, year and a half, and a big part of our future and where we're headed with a lot of our offerings around designing integrated benefit solutions. And of course, I'm going to give some detail on what that is here in a second. Here's an example of some of the customers that we work with, just to give you an idea of who we service. We work with everything from hospital systems like Children's in Cincinnati, Ohio, large payroll companies like Paychex, other institutions like the American Heart Association, universities, and so on, delivering some of those services that I talked about earlier. The idea is here that we cover a wide range of employers in different settings, blue collar, white collar, and so on, and we really look to see how those benefits can meet their specific needs and be integrated into a package of services that benefit their human capital development. I want to take you on a journey now. I want to talk about, kind of tell a story about how we got to where we are with benefit integration. So I'm going to take you on a journey that covers basically a 4-year time period. And before we get started, I want to kind of give a definition of benefit integration so we have an idea of what we're looking at here. Basically, for us, benefit integration is the coordination of any combination of employee benefits that were previously separate from one another in a way that they are monitored, managed, and processed in cooperation with each other. So we're really looking to bring a lot of benefits that are offered out there separately or fragmented, as we like to say, and really bring them into an integration where we monitor them, manage them, and even put processes in place that help direct how these will cooperate with each other and work together. Let me show you about this 4-year journey that we are on. What we did and how this got started was we actually integrated 4 different benefits, 3 of them that we provided and another one with the company's health care plan. And we looked at taking a wellness program, their employee assistance program, work-life services, which is all the online and concierge services that we talked about, and their health plan, and put those together in a way that they're offered more as an integrated kind of one offering. Let me show you some of the details on what happened with that. So they were promoted as one program. We really put together material and literature, hard copy and online, that really presented them as an individual, not as an individual program, but as one integrated program. They actually called it Active Health. We brought it up in a way that was intuitively would make cross referrals between those benefit services. I'll talk more about that here in a minute and show an example of how that happened. Here's an actual case that kind of started to open our eyes to the whole area of integration and why this really is something to the human resource world that needs to be looked at. This slide here kind of comes up all at once. That's smart art and really didn't work well with the web-based program here. But let me just kind of cover this together. An employee called into our service actually seeking EAP counseling. I don't know if you can see my arrow, but it's the top blue circle on the top. She was looking for help with stress and basically work around some very pressuring grief issues and so on. Her husband was diagnosed with a serious illness and had a terminal diagnosis of about 3 to 6 months. She called us looking for some relief around that. We then realized because of that, just again from the top level intuitively, that she had some, of course, needs from a health advocacy standpoint with her insurance, that there was going to be a lot of insurance claims, and she could have somebody really guide her with that and really work through the complexity of her insurance coverage. So we lined her up and connected her through a referral with her health advocacy service to make sure that that all was coordinated properly. We then thought that they have a wellness program, which was provided through us, and that she needed to participate in that. Actually, at that point, she said that she probably didn't have time for it and needed to hold off on it. We actually, at that point, said, this is the reason why you need to move ahead with it. You really need it at this point. So we helped really navigate her through the website, connect her with their coach, their wellness coach, and really worked with her participation requirements, which actually was integrated with her health plan because it allowed her to get a better level of health coverage by participating in her wellness program. We then realized that they had a legal referral service as part of their benefits that we could work with to make sure her husband's will was in order. So we coordinated a contact and a referral to that. And then unfortunately, but towards the end of the whole ordeal, we actually worked on the bottom there. You can't quite see it, but with the work-life concierge service to really help her with a lot of the funeral coordinations and a lot of the events that followed that. So the idea here is what we were doing in that integration of those benefit services we brought together. We did it from the top level there more from an intuitive standpoint where we realized that she needed certain assistance and she had certain benefits that could address those. We also realized that she may not be aware of those benefits. She may not be aware of the extent of how they can work together. So we really helped integrate and bring those benefits together to her, but mainly, like I said, from an intuitive standpoint. For us, what we want to do is really move it to a process standpoint where these benefits aren't just brought together through somebody's awareness of their levels of service, but are brought together through specific processes or performance agreements even, which I'll discuss more at the end here, that actually direct and define how those benefits should work together and can work together for the betterment of their human capital. She did write us a thank you note at the end, a little personal touch because it's about people. It's but my case manager skillfully orchestrated every twist and turn of my confusing drama. Each person I spoke with made a strong, concerted effort to ease my considerable stress and comfort me. Every crisis we met with, okay, Jane, you go take care of what you have to do and we'll leave the rest to us. So it really helped coordinate and integrate that package of benefit services she had through, in this case, kind of a telephonic contact through our service when she called in. So that really started that journey to say, I think there's something here we need to look at from an integration standpoint. It also led us to what I like to call real wow results. When we brought these benefits together, things happened that we actually didn't anticipate. We're at a level that we didn't anticipate them. And I'll cover those here in a minute. Let me give you some ideas of what I mean by that. From the wellness program, again, over this 4-year journey, let's look at, we integrated these benefits in 2008. Before that, the web logins to their wellness program were, as you can see before, around 3,900 up to 7,200 in 2007. When we brought these benefits together and integrated them that way and had people directed to go through one website to get to whether it's the wellness, the EAP, the work life, or other information along that line, the web logins obviously went up, but even more than we anticipated from that wow standpoint. They went to 140,000 in 2008 and maintained a level of around 120,000, and 2012 was also the same. We have data on that. Now I've got to update this. So that results of just the activity from the web logins was quite surprising to us as well. We then, even with their wellness program, the way it was set up and integrated at that time, we told them that the national participation for what they call a highly incentivized wellness program, I think they were doing about $300 that you could take advantage of if you participated in their wellness program, at a quite a high level too, actually. They had to take a health risk appraisal. They had to do a biometric screening, actually have a blood draw done and do a biometric screening. And they had to meet a lot of compliance points and benchmarks within the website to make that level of participation to get that incentive. So we told them they'd probably get about 45%, maybe 50% participation in the program. But actually through this integration, what happened in the first year ended up with an 86% participation, and they have over 12,000 employees nationally. That was a surprise in a positive way, and they liked that. At the same time, that $300 as a bonus, they looked and estimated their budget needs, and I think they did put in about 50%. And when it hit 86%, they had to come up with some extra budget dollars to meet that specific incentive that they set up, which was somewhat of a surprise to them. At the same time, my point is that the participation rate and the engagement, as they call it, of this program was astounding. The work-life request, we have data back even further than this, but in 2006 and 2007, was running around, let's say, 1,500 requests where people would actually call in and speak to one of our concierge service providers, our work-life providers, and make a request for a specific information and then have that request fulfilled and sent back to them. When we integrated this, all the individuals that came into the wellness program that I showed earlier, or even into the employee assistance service, came through the same website. And what happened was the work-life request went up by quite a bit. And you can see here from 2008 to 2011, I mean, they basically doubled and stayed steady throughout those 4-year time periods. I'll say, to give you an example, I mean, somebody might call in talking to their wellness coach and say that they don't have time to really look to see what gyms in the area might address their needs to make a better kind of personal action plan to address their wellness needs, and weren't sure of the cost or availability. So the wellness coach would say, well, you have a personal assistant concierge service. Let us recommend that you contact them, or we'll send you right over to them so they can start to research those gyms or specific costs or other factors that you're looking for in your area so they can find out and get that information to you to better help you with developing that personal action plan. So again, those cross referrals also made a difference in a number of engagements or utilization of that service. Employee Assistance Program, here's an area where when we integrated those 4 benefits together, we thought we had a pretty good idea of how much it would impact it. As you can see here, it went up drastically. The number of people who use the EAP for that prepaid counseling behavioral health service, I estimated they were already running a good percentage. They were running somewhere around 8 to 10% as we measure it. And this is the same measurement, too, I'm going to say. None of these of the measurement metrics change during this time period. They're all done the same way to give a consistency to it. But what happened was it went from 8 to 10% to somewhere around whatever 36 to 38% in that time period. So we expected an increase, but we didn't expect anything like that. So that's, some of the numbers and some of the ideas you can see that brought us to this idea that, boy, especially when employers are paying for a lot of these benefits on a per employee per month basis, that just from the level of engagement through this integration, it increases their return on investment. There are other ways that it has definitely increased their return on investment, but just from that standard alone made sense that this integration had a major impact on this. Let me go to how we actually got to moving ahead on this. We talked to some of our employers about their employee benefits, and we sat down and kind of informally discussed and surveyed with several of our larger employers. And we heard this over and over, and it's kind of the point where they said, hey, the good news about our benefit package and our employee benefits and the bad news about our employee benefit package. And it went pretty much like this. They said the good news is we have a lot of programs for our people. They said the bad news is we have a lot of programs for our people. And what we heard from a theme over and over again is that we try to benefit our people at a level that we feel will help us with recruitment and retention and so on, and really motivate and build the culture and workforce we're looking for. But at the same time, we have so many benefits and so many offerings that the people are quite disconnected from a lot of them. Or even when they do use them, they have expectations that are not met because they don't quite understand the benefit that leads to a dissatisfaction with the benefit package. So, the good news is, they have a lot of benefits. The bad news is they have so many benefits their people are having a hard time grasping and using them properly. Let's take a look at that. Today's employers offer numerous benefit offerings. And like we do already know from a variety of disconnected vendors, it's difficult to monitor and manage these benefits. What we like to term it as is fragmented benefit offering, therefore through several different benefit providers that are not connected. The problem with this is, from an HR standpoint, is it comes down to time, coordination of those benefits, communication, and engagement, something we just took a quick look at. The measurement of those is also difficult as well. From a time standpoint, HR professionals are dealing with multiple vendors, which leads into a lot of time in meeting with them and connecting with them on that benefit overview and what the benefits are there for. The employees spend too much time searching for contact information often, and often don't know where to call or even look on the web to get such contacting information. Coordination of those benefits, there's little to no coordination between vendors. I was talking to one HR professional who used to work for a very large employer. I'll leave the name out, and he said because of their size, they were able at one time to call all their benefit providers, all their vendors, and tell them they need to fly in and meet together. And he said, we're going to provide you with the sandbox. You as benefit providers need to figure out how to play together in that sandbox and come up with ways that you're going to support each other, communicate with each other, connect with each other, and so on. So it was an early attempt, I think, and he said it was successful in many ways to get these benefit providers sitting at the same table and building, I wouldn't say rules, but almost processes of how they can work together for the betterment of that human capital and that employer that they're providing those benefits. Missed opportunities often with these fragmented benefits to support employee life events. I've talked with many HR professionals when they've said they've been walking through the hallway and an employee will stop them and ask them how things are going, and they'll mention something in their life, an employee will, that happened, and the HR professional say, oh, we have a benefit for that. And the individual says, oh, I forgot about that. That's right. I do remember something, but no, I didn't get a hold of them. Now that life event has passed, it's no longer pertinent to contact that benefit, and they've missed that opportunity to connect with that benefit that the employer provides. From a communication standpoint, it's difficult to communicate the totality of a benefit package sometimes because there's so many, 12, 14, 16 different benefits an employer may offer. From a new hire orientation, I always love this one. I think these new hires often enter what we call a benefit haze, where they might be bringing in one vendor after another to introduce this very robust benefit package that the employer offers. At the same time, after about 2 or 3 of those vendors, I've had a lot of the employees tell me we kind of hazed over and didn't quite hear everything that was going on there. But at the same time, we got some basic information, but nothing that I retained at a very high level. Benefit awareness, like I said, often fades over time, and employers are constantly struggling with ways to keep that communication up. I know single-source sign-ins for web portals are big now, so they can go in and see all their benefit package in one spot without having to sign into each of the vendor offerings of the description and even help areas and contact areas of the benefits. But still, it's difficult to keep that benefit awareness in front of them, and if they don't, 4 or 5 years later, or even probably 4 or 5 months later sometimes, they forget which benefits they have available to them. Engagement. We just touched on some of this before. Many times employee utilization of ancillary benefits is very low. They tend not to engage them at a very high level. It's not uncommon for employees, like I said, to forget the benefits are available. And that low engagement, like I mentioned before, often results in lower return on investment. Again, I know a lot of employers pay PE, PM per employee per month for a lot of their benefit offerings. And when they just have a low engagement or low utilization of it, they don't realize the return on investment that benefit's been put in place for, and are always looking for ways to increase that engagement. Measurement is difficult. Obviously, I have multiple reports and overlapping data. A lot of employers tell me, and HR professionals will lay out 5 or 6 different reports they've received. They'll say often, from this vendor is talking about something the other one is, but they're using different terms. It's hard for them to really, get a handle on all those overlapping reports and the data that's provided with them. It's also impossible to gain a comprehensive view of the impact of those overall benefit packages and to perform any analytics because they often have, again, so many different ways they're measured and terms they use and so on. And it's difficult to determine a return on investment if you don't set some good parameters to measure that early and to try to see how that benefit may impact the goals or targets that you're shooting at and put some type of ROI around that. I want to take a look at that area of benefit awareness and the impact it has on employers and how important it is. Here's some data I thought I'd bring in on benefit awareness. Sherm research found benefits to be one of the top 5 very important factors in job satisfaction. That's a pretty big statement. Job satisfaction, of course, often leads to retention, and I'll give some more detail around that as time goes on here. Here's one. 80% of human resource decision makers believe it's important for employees to fully understand benefit options, yet they estimate only 60% of their employees do. The HR understands the importance of that, but also realizes their people don't really grasp their benefit package. Here's another study that really backs that up. This one's done by AFLAC in 2011, and they found just 40% of employees feel well informed about their benefits their company offers. Considering the substantial investment employers make in benefits, 40% grasp of that is not typically what they're looking for. Here's one here that I really like because I just think it says workers who are extremely or very satisfied with their benefits program are 9 times more likely to stay with their employer than those workers who are dissatisfied with their benefits program. again, a 2012 AFLAC study, but 9 times. If it was double, it would make a big difference. And I think, obviously, with the way things are going, it's hard to always predict the great talent wars and stuff. I've been around long enough to see the ebb and flow of employee and employer posturing around talent and recruiting. But it appears that all the numbers are pointing to a real battle around talent, especially skilled talent with employers and needing to fill positions. Obviously, you know, a lot of the numbers, 72 million baby boomers are approaching retirement age, one of the largest demographics, of course, moving through our culture. The talent shortage, you know, of skilled talent anyway is projected in the U.S. By 2018 to be around 200,000 job vacancies that won't be filled because they can't get the talented workers to do that, the talent pool to do that. So it appears that retention in the next 4 to 5 years is going to be a huge concern or challenge with many employers. And if we really look at that, if that's true, extremely or very satisfied with the benefits are 9 times more likely to stay with their employer. That's a big statement, and I think something that a lot of employers are going to pay a lot of attention to in the upcoming years. We did a kind of an informal survey with the last National SHRM conference, and I want to bring up a couple of points here to emphasize some of what we said. We actually surveyed 836 human resource individuals during the conference. And what we found out that when we asked them your top 5 HR priorities for 2012 last year, they mentioned retention of employees, and they mentioned recruiting and hiring skilled employees. So that was in their top 5 priorities for 2012. So even though it looks like the pressure for the talent pool is coming down the pike, they're starting to realize it at this point, and retaining their top talent is something that they're going to put a lot of time and effort into. I'm going to switch gears here just for a second, bring up somebody I really admire, and that's Steve Jobs with the whole Apple experience. I want to talk about integration here while we go through this. And basically from this standpoint, I want to mention Bono from the famous rock band, those who know it, U2. And in 2003, Bono said of Steve Jobs that Steve Jobs is the Dalai Lama of integration. And what he meant there was Steve was able to really bring together the world of music, technology, and marketing into an integrated fashion that really benefited not only a lot of the artists and performers, but our country in general. I don't know how many of you know, but iTunes now is the #1 music store in the world. And I believe totally they've done about 16 billion downloads of songs since it's been started. And they said just in the last 4 months, 1 billion songs were downloaded on iTunes. So what he's saying here is that through integration of technology and music, Steve Jobs has created something that is very innovative and really had a big hit. Also, I want to mention, too, there's an individual, Tramuto, the mover and shaker in the world of healthcare. I read an article from Fast Company in 2012, and he supported that whole approach, too. He puts, everybody wants to be an inventor, Tramuto says, but it's not just about innovation, it's also about integration. Just as Steve Jobs created miraculous new things by piecing together in new ways technologies that already existed. The iPad is obviously one area where he's brought together many different technologies, and it's been a huge success. So it's not just through pure innovation of new ideas, but also through the integration of existing ideas. And I believe that's what we're looking at here with the human resource benefits world. How you can bring together how benefits are being offered now and truly a new way of integration. What we're looking at, of course, is innovation through integration. I want to look at a historical lesson only. I want to take a look at what's happening out there from our perspective in the field of benefit integration and see if we can learn from another kind of more mature field of the auto industry over the last 50, 60 years. And for any of you who don't know, I put it on the license plate. That's a 1958 Ford Edsel, and not one of Ford's best products that they ever turned out, and often referred to as the worst automobile ever released to the public. So So let's take a look at that and see if we can learn something from that auto industry when it comes to integration. Current benefit model for employers offering benefits. We've touched on this at some level. As the employer that has several different benefit providers, whether it's health plan, long-term disability, financial services, life insurance, work life like we mentioned, and so on, offered by separate vendors, all brought into the employer through contracts and agreements that they put together. However, as we see, there's typically little or no communication between those vendors, and there's little or no benefit integration there. Very little of that getting together in one sandbox and figuring out how to play together. So what we're seeing now in the field, and where a lot of the, I would say, HR professionals are gravitating toward, is to get a benefit provider, often like a large health care provider, and get the benefit services from that healthcare provider that are what we call vertically integrated into services. They'll have the health plans, and they have an EAP, they'll have wellness, they have a life insurance vendor that's part of them or owned by them, and that's delivered to the employer in a package. That's what we call, of course, vertical integration. And again, the business level from the car level is the fact that the U.S. auto industry in the 1940s and 50s was big on vertical integration. We saw it as a way to deliver a car that was inexpensive in a very controlled fashion by owning all the pieces of how that car was made. What we also found was it delivered poor quality of that vehicle. It was slow to innovate. It was hard for Ford, since they owned the engine factory and the tire factory, and they owned all the different elements of that. It was hard for them to innovate and really feel that pressure of the outside forces from a competitive standpoint to make a change, and they were sluggish to respond to changing market needs. So the U.S. auto industry early on really went towards a vertical integration of many different vendors, all owned and run and controlled by the auto giant, in this case Ford. Back up. I also wanted to mention that sheep on there is the fact that actually Ford in the 50s owned sheep farms that they actually would, of course, shear the wool and produce the seats for the cars. So their vertical integration went all the way down to that, and glass factories and so on. So they owned it all, and they put it all under one roof to deliver that car. However, during that time that we were doing that, I believe that's a 1989 Toyota Camry, the more Asian or Japanese auto industry was moving towards a separate but integrated approach, and that's more of what we call a horizontal integration. And what they found there is by not owning or having one vendor that owned all those different pieces, but let all those vendors be separate but integrated through contracts or subcontracts agreements, they were able to produce a superior quality vehicle, rapid innovation and best in class, often to make changes, and really quick to respond to market changes or needs or perceived needs of that market. I'll even say, too, in Ford and a lot of the American car industries that dominated the auto industry in the 50s and even the 60s fell behind because they didn't move to this horizontal integration fast enough. Even in the 80s, their statistics and research shows that the Japanese auto industry, I think 75% of the car's value came from separate but integrated vendors, where in the U.S. auto industry, even in the 80s, we were still at about 50% of the car's value actually being delivered from outside vendors. So they still controlled a lot of the processes and owned a lot of the development of the car from the U.S. and the U.S. auto industry. So the idea here is that when you integrate things, you can do it often horizontally or vertically, but this horizontal integration allows you for quicker, rapid change and brings in a lot of the competitive forces that drive innovation and a lot of quality. I'll touch on that some more here in a moment. This horizontal model that we're recommending as an approach, I mentioned performance agreements. And what I mean there is that taking these separate vendor providers of benefits and having them through performance agreements actually put together specific processes on how they need to integrate and work together. not just function separately as we said earlier, fragmented benefit offerings. And then a benefit integrator, a vendor of that level, could bring one contract to the employer, either through two or three of these benefits or all the benefits, therefore bringing an integrated approach of these separate vendors to deliver that to the actual user or the employer of that service. The key here is these performance agreements. They're very important in how this whole service will work, and how they specifically lay out processes and so on to make them work together and integrate at a high level. And also the idea, too, is that if somebody transitions, if you need to bring in a new vendor, then you can transition out the one vendor that's there and bring in a new one in a way that doesn't disrupt the delivery of the service of all the other vendors. Often when you have more of the vertical integration, and let's say through a large healthcare provider, and they turn over that healthcare provider, you've got to change many of the vendors that were vertically integrated under that service, and not just the ones that weren't serving or providing that level of service that the company was looking for. So also on our journey, I want to talk about the fact that where we're going next and what we recommend from that 4-year journey of really looking at the power of benefit integration and how it's affected benefits and the delivery of those services. We're really recommending integration in 3 different ways. I think one employer should look at a benefit information line. One line, and I'll give more details on this, where somebody can get all their benefit information. I also think they should look at a benefit web portal that integrates those services. And even past just listing all the different benefit providers, but up to a point where it really helps point out and identify where there's integration opportunities for the employees that are looking at benefit information or coming through that web portal. I also want to say a little bit on the performance agreements and give some specifics on that, because I believe that's another area where employers can make a large improvement in how benefits are delivered to their human capital and how it can benefit their company and their goals and where they're going. Just quickly, from a benefit information line, what we recommend is that people would be able to call into one line for all their benefit questions. And I think at that point, the information specialist on the other end of that line should identify the eligible individual and have in front of him or her all the benefits that's available to that individual at the time, not just the benefit that the individual is calling in for. In other words, if they call in about their health care plan and have a question on that, the information specialist should be able to also look at their retirement plan, their paid time off. They should have all their benefits available to them so they can look for integration opportunities like we showed earlier in the show when somebody contacted us about the individual who had a terminally ill husband. I've even had people say to me, well, what do you mean the retirement plan? Somebody calls in for a question about borrowing against their 401k. How would you integrate something along that line? Well, if they're borrowing against their 401k, there may be other needs that are at present with that to drive other benefit usage. Give you an example here. If somebody asked about borrowing against their 401k, that was a request down below. It may be for a reason of they're going to put money down towards a home, or maybe they're going to buy a vehicle with it, or they're looking to start a business with it, and so on. They also might be purchasing a home for other reasons. Maybe they're making home improvements and so on, blending families. The point is, if they ask some of those questions in a confidential stance, then they can look and leverage a lot of the benefits that they have available to them that they might not be able to think about or might not be connecting to their reason for borrowing. So even retirement plans and other benefits can be leveraged in a way from information requests to look at other benefits that can meet the individual's needs. Once they look at integration, if they're purchasing a home for certain areas, then I think they should come back and recommend all the benefits that can meet their needs, or at least support where they're going with that information request about their benefits, not just a specific benefit that they call in with a benefit question. Web portal, just a couple of things on this. I think they should have a spot where they can come into where it has all their benefits available to them, but even goes beyond that to make sure that it looks to see if it can integrate the benefits that they have available to them that the employer has paid for and set up for them. I think the web portal should be one easy-to-use site that access all employee benefit information. I think the software should be there to guide the user in assessing their benefit needs and to make individual benefit recommendations. Similar to what would happen with an information specialist or benefit specialist when you call in, I think the software should look for ways to basically ask them underlying questions about benefit needs and expose the individual to their other benefit packages other than the one that they just came in to look at. Of course, there should be chat room support by experienced benefit information specialists, more and more acceptable way to gain information through a chat room. Also, I think they should have 24/7 availability, of course, any type of web portal, and even have phone application connectivity to that. Obviously, more and more an acceptable way to get into the internet and to use different services based there. And of course, we believe the web portal and even the information specialists are better set sometimes with a confidential external third party. That way they feel more comfortable with either asking additional questions about benefit need or even explaining why they have the informational request that they do about the certain benefits that they're looking at. Performance agreements, just a couple things on this. I mentioned before, I think they're the key to really bringing together a lot of different benefit providers. And I brought this graph up earlier here, this representation. And I think those performance agreements are a big part of bringing them together in a way that's more one contract delivered to the employer. But even better than that, I think these performance agreements should look to address certain areas that are not always found. We've looked at a lot of different agreements with different vendors, with employers, and it's surprising sometimes how some of this stuff is left out of those performance agreements that we believe should be there. I think there should be contracted defined processes between benefit integration and the vendors there. It should say how they need to work with each other. If somebody has a request along this line, they should have the responsibility to make people aware of other benefits that are available to them. I think it should have defined reporting formats. I know a lot of employers we're working with are making some progress with this and working on this, but I really think there should be a way where they can say, we'd like the reporting format contracted-wise brought to us this way so that we can look at bringing that together in a way that we can report, in a way that we can analyze and look at the return on investment of those benefits that we're providing. Specific performance benchmarks should be defined in there. Should be a way to say, we expect this benefit to do this, or have performance standards built right into the performance agreement. We're seeing more and more of that, but I still think it has a long ways to go. And also on here, too, this doesn't cover all of them, but contracted vendor transition processes and responsibilities. Often, if they're going to transition out one of the vendors and bring in a different vendor for whatever benefit that is, it's amazing how many times we see a very weak or even not defined at all transition process. How will that vendor service end? What are their responsibilities for information past the contract date? How will they integrate and work with the incoming vendor that's delivering that benefit, and so on. I think that should be all spelled out in those performance agreements. Just to kind of summarize here and wrap up some other statistics to support the whole idea of benefit integration. 2010 Spring Group designed a survey to identify trends in integration. They surveyed 104 employers who already had some level of integration in place, and here's some of the results. 46% stated they integrated certain benefits to streamline the administration of those programs, a big part of what we talked earlier, and bring about efficiency and natural connection. 3/4 of the employers listed improved productivity, reduced absenteeism as goals in their integration. 75% of the employers noted increased employee satisfaction as a goal. A lot of times employees, I'll say, are dissatisfied with their benefit. It's more about lack of awareness or lack of having clear expectations of what that benefit is than it is the actual benefit or what it delivers. That lack of awareness often breeds a lot of dissatisfaction with their program and their benefits. After integration, the majority of employers achieved documented savings, direct costs, return to work rates of 11% or higher than before integration. 64% of employers said they plan to increase the amount of benefit integration they offer. I want to kind of wrap up here, too, with something. Back in October, I went to a World Business Conference and happened to hear a presentation by Jack Welch, who was the CEO and chairman of GE from 81 to 2001, I believe it was a 20-year time period. And he increased the value of GE only 400% during that time. But more importantly, why I brought up, because he's often looked upon as a real hard-nosed, no-nonsense businessman who really came in, took GE by the horns, and turned it around, and a real tough business guy. And many of his books reflect that. Somebody asked him, what's the key, the success to business? He said, Jack Welch said, business is all about people. You build the best team, you win, which really hit me because here's a guy that's extremely hard-nosed, business, and he realizes that it's really about people. It's about the team you build that makes a winning company or has it meet its goals or heads it in the direction that the leadership feels that it should. It's really about the people, and as we've seen, the benefit package and how they're put together has a lot to do with how a company supports and motivates and recruits and so on their human capital. From a benefit services standpoint, that's really what we're looking at here. It's aimed at the bottom line, and we realize that companies do often look at that. But I want to make sure we're looking at the right bottom line because I believe the bottom line in the providing of these services is really people. It's really not about the benefits, it's about the people, about finding out what your people's needs are and really putting together a package that supports those needs and heads that human capital in the direction that the leadership and company feels that it should. Thank you. I think that's about it from a time standpoint. And here's some contact information if you wish to ask me any questions later or have any other informational needs that you're looking at. And that concludes my presentation on benefit integration.